Hello, everybody, and welcome to Common Sense with Curtis Scott. And I'm here today with Ann Montgomery, Ellis County and District Attorney. How are you doing today, Ann?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Glad to have you on here. If you could just go ahead and give us a little bit of background about yourself, a little introduction for all the voters out there.
Sure. My name is Ann Montgomery. I'm the current county and district attorney for Ellis County. I took over as the elected on January 1st of 2021. I started in this office February 3rd of 2003, so I'm coming up on my 21st anniversary. I started when I was really young, right? So I was born and raised in Johnson County, right on the other side of the Ellis County line, graduated from Grandview High School. I went to the University of Texas in Arlington and got my degree in political science. I've always been in the legal field. I worked for an attorney when I was going to get my undergraduate degree. And then at that point, when I received that, I went to work for a personal injury attorney as a paralegal. After that, I worked for the State Bar of Texas as a paralegal and then as an investigator. And I went to law school at night. I went to Texas Wesleyan University School of Law and graduated. I worked full-time during the day, and I went to school part-time at night. And that was a Monday through Thursday night program. Once I graduated, I worked for the State Bar of Texas as an assistant disciplinary counsel, but my job was eliminated. And so I went to, actually the entire office was eliminated. They closed the Fort Worth office. And then I went to work for the Ellis County and District Attorney's Office as a misdemeanor prosecutor. I switched over to the civil division, worked my way up to first assistant. And when Patrick Wilson decided he was not going to run for another term, then I threw my name into the hat. And I won that election in March of 2020 and took office on January 1st of 2021.
Okay, so you got a little experience there. So I'm going to be asking a couple of questions. I put a little banner down just to let all the viewers know. I will put this out. I will ask you the questions. So the first question is going to be, why are you running for Ellis County and District Attorney? I know you're already there, but why are you running again?
You know, I've had my friends say to me, the one thing they like is they never hear me say it's a job. It's not a job. It's a passion. It's what I love to do. When I was in that office as assistant and first assistant, I loved coming to work and helping people. As the elected, I get to do that even more. It's a difficult position. Since taking office, I've met with numerous victims' families. I've made it almost every time, or at least the first time a victim's family comes in, I do sit in on those meetings and meet with them, especially on the large cases. It's difficult to sit on those meetings, but I do that. And I want to keep doing that. I want Ellis County citizens to see that we're still seeking justice. We're still doing what we're supposed to be doing. I'm really excited about the things that are in the future for the DA's office since I've been there, and things that we've been working on. So I'm excited to keep seeing those things go through.
Okay, so I'm going to move along to the next question. And that is, can you explain the role to all the voters out there? What do you do? What is the Ellis County District Attorney's job? What exactly is it?
Well, we're an Ellis County Attorney's Office with felony responsibility. We shorten that, since we don't have a district attorney's office, to Ellis County and District Attorney, because you can imagine the calls we would get when we answered Ellis County Attorney and they ask who's the district attorney. We perform the functions, the same thing that almost a criminal district attorney's office would do, but they're set up by statute. I'm set up by the Constitution, the Ellis County Attorney's Office. So I do anything from Class C misdemeanors up to capital murders on the criminal side. Then I have a family justice division that does child protective services, some adult protective services, mental health commitments, juvenile, and protective orders. And then I have the civil division that represents the county and department heads and elected officials, responds to Public Information Act requests. People don't understand that probably a third of our office is all of the civil functions by looking at all the contracts the county signs, helping with negotiations. It's It's a wide variety of things that we're called upon to do on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. So, as a DA or Ellis County Attorney and District Attorney, what is your number one priority?
Okay. You know, the number one priority is seeing that justice is done, and that is a statutory duty that we have as prosecutors. It's one of the things that's in the Code of Criminal Procedure that is my role. It says I'm not to seek convictions, but I'm to seek justice. So that's obviously a number one priority. The other priority is to see our criminal cases through as quickly as we can, as long as justice is done. COVID really did affect the criminal justice system. In March of 2020, when I ran for this position, nobody knew in a couple of weeks the court system was going to be shut down by the Office of Court Administration in the entire state of Texas. They said we could not have in-person proceedings. We were not up and able to do virtual proceedings until May or June of 2020. When I took office in 2021, there were still no in-person jury trials. There were no in-person jury trials in this county until May of 2022. So we had 18 months in which we could not have in-person criminal jury trials. And that caused quite a bit of extra cases on the docket. So we're working through those. So that's obviously a priority. My second priority right now is we're working on transitioning to a new computer software system that we're so excited about, and I know the police agencies are very excited about. That is a process that we started in probably the summer of 2021. It's going to make us more effective. It's going to make us more efficient. The police agencies will not have to come and hand deliver paper to my office anymore. They'll be able to sit at their desk in whatever city they're in and press a button and send it to us and transmit it to us, which means I can then do that to the defense counsel. So instead of coming into my office and having to be shuffled with all of the paper that we get on a day-to-day basis, it's all going to be done electronically. We're working right now with our computer. It's been awarded through the county, and we are working on getting that probably in April and May of this year. We'll start testing it with a few agencies. So that's high on my list to get done.
Oh yeah, as a law enforcement officer, I can say that would definitely be really nice, especially for the CID side. But as patrol officers, I mean, it will make everything easier on our end, I believe.
Well, when you think about some of the small agencies that have one or two officers on at one time, and they have to stop and come and bring cases to our office, that puts quite a burden on them. So hopefully this is going to really ease that burden somewhat.
Yeah, and our county's growing big too, so it's
yes, it is.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the next question, and that is how many people work for the Ellis County DA's office? So basically, what I'm asking there is if you can give a little bit of a layout of like how many different kind of jobs even, but how many people total, and
Sure.
what all those jobs are.
If you count my part-time staff that I have, which I only have one, it's 54 total employees. It's really difficult to find and fill somebody for a part-time position though. So that has been open for quite some time. So it's usually around 53. I have clerks, our support staff. I have legal secretaries that work more on the civil and family side. I have investigators, which are peace officers in the state of Texas, and I have assistant county and district attorneys. So I have 24 assistant county and district attorneys that work under me.
So right now you said you have 53-ish, somewhere in there?
Somewhere in there, yes.
Okay. So I know I spoke with your competition, I guess you would say, the candidate that's running against you, and she said something about a high turnover and stuff like that. And I think you've discussed some of this before. Has there been a high turnover recently?
Sure. There's always a turnover in an office when a new elected official comes in. Even if it comes from an internal person, I don't do things the way Mr. Wilson does. Mr. Wilson didn't do things the way Mr. Grubbs does. So sometimes there is just that normal attrition that comes with a new elected official taking an office. I've looked at those numbers. I look at those numbers all the time. More than 40%, if I'm not mistaken, went and left to go to other counties making more money, closer to home most of the time. Some left to go into private practice to have more flexibility. Some left and completely moved out of state and are no longer even in this area.
They moved out
So
to Texas.
I had a few that moved out of Texas, and I actually had one that joined the military. So, I mean, there is a lot, but right now in prosecutors' offices throughout the state of Texas, if anybody were to go and just Google even prosecutor shortages nationwide, it is a problem. It's been a problem since right before COVID. COVID did not help that with the work from home. If you go and look at the Texas and District County Attorneys Association website where we post jobs, there's hundreds all throughout the state of Texas. It's an issue to be able to get people in a prosecutor's office now. Retention is a problem because of pay. We just don't pay like you can make in private practice. So because of that, and we don't have the flexibility. My staff is at the office from 8 to 5, sometimes after 5, sometimes on weekends. They're not working from home on their computer all the time. They're working from home sometimes at night and on weekends. But it's difficult right now in this profession to maintain employees. Every conference I've gone to since taking office, we've had classes for the electeds on hiring and the retention of staff. We've never had to do that before in our profession. Usually when we would put previously a job online, you'd get 50 to 100 applicants within a week. I had a $110,000 position posted for over a year with no applicants.
Oh, wow.
And it's a different time. Some offices, prosecutors' offices, are adapting to that by offering remote positions. I don't have any remote positions, but there are some posted on the TDCAA website, and that's one of the ways they're trying to get and retain some of those prosecutors and employees.
I don't know how that would work, but hey.
I don't either, because a lot of our job is in the courtroom, making negotiations and doing things. When we were doing court on Zoom and dockets, we just weren't able to move as many cases as when you're looking at people and everybody's in the courtroom at the same time. It's a lot more difficult to move the cases remotely. I expect, a grand jury position when you just come in for when the grand jury meets, but you can be home and screen the cases. That could be one, maybe appellate. If you're reading the record and writing briefs, but just a trial prosecutor, I don't see how that is going to be very effective.
Yeah. Okay. Well, speaking of all this stuff, I'd like to move on. And you're talking about doing cases here, prosecuting cases. So approximately how many felonies and misdemeanors does the DA handle in a year, and how many go to trial?
Sure. From 2021 to November of 2023, we had 5,057 misdemeanors filed. Out of that, we disposed of 4,899 cases. So we're not quite even, but we're close. So yearly, it varies. On the misdemeanor side, we have less possession of marijuana cases filed now than what we ever have. We had 189 cases filed last year on possession of marijuana. Take into consideration in 2018, I had 786. So the possession of marijuana are going down. However, assault family violences have gone up a little bit. I had 327 filed in January 2023 to November of 2023 alone, which is up a little bit, and it makes up about 12% of my misdemeanor docket. So we're handling and pushing through quite a few cases. Not all cases go to trial. 95% of those cases or more resolved by a plea bargain agreement. But we have to have the criminal justice system and the jury trial system to make it work. On felonies, we've had since January of 2020, 1 to November 2023. If I'm not mistaken, I'm looking at my statistics here because I want to make sure I get it right. We had a grand total of I don't have it all totaled up. I can say that in 2021, we had 1,162 cases filed, and we disposed of 1,064. 2022, we had 1,267 cases, disposed of 1,300. So we disposed of more than what we were able to file. And last year through November, we had 1,915 that were indicted, which is way more than what we had in 2021 and 2022 total. And we disposed of 1,829. Some of the trends that we are seeing in felonies is we're up a little bit on violent felonies, according to the Office of Court Administration. We also see that with the number of homicides that we're seeing that are brought in. Through November of last year, and just last year alone, we had 15 total homicides that were filed with my office, and 9 of those were murder and capital murder cases, so an intentional killing. In 2022, we had 15 also, and 7 of them were murder and capital murder. In 2021, we had 8, with 5 being capital murder and murder. Now, what's also gone down in the felony area is drug possession. You know, the cases that are being set for trial and that are being worked through the criminal justice system right now are more of our violent felonies. In 2018, 2019, we had 41 and 47% of the docket was possession of drug cases. Those are put your lab technician on, put your police officer on, and those are shorter trials. And now only 29% of my docket is made up of possession of drug cases. So that just says we're having more of the violent felonies, less of the drug possessions, and the cases that we're trying. I know this week we picked a capital murder case in which the death penalty had been waived. We had a continuous sexual abuse of a child, and then we had a drug possession case that was picked for juries this week. And then we had 2 or 3 misdemeanors that we picked.
Okay. So just to clarify for the voters out there or for the listeners out there, when you say dispose of a case, if you can just clarify for them.
Be more than happy to.
I know what you're talking about, but they may think, well, they're just throwing the cases out. No,
disposed is disposed by way of a plea bargain or a dismissal on some cases or a jury trial. So all of those cases, that's how we dispose of a case. They're filed in court, and so it has to have a final resolution. And a lot of those are by plea bargain. Some are by jury trials. Very few are by bench trials in the criminal area. And then some are dismissed based on evidence or facts that the defense lawyer might convey to us.
Because you're seeking justice, right? So, I mean, that's the thing. I've been an officer since 1998, and I've had a few cases dismissed on mine that it was Dallas County. I'll just say it. It wasn't because of lack of evidence. And that's where I just want to make sure that people understand and make sure you're there too. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But
some of those cases, maybe there's multiple cases and they plead on 2 and one's dismissed. I mean, so it doesn't necessarily mean we look at it and we weigh the plea bargain agreement and we look at what a jury would give us and what a jury would do often in making those plea bargain recommendations.
Okay. So, well, I appreciate you informing all the listeners on how that works. You know, a lot of people don't understand how the system, and that's one of the reasons I do Common Sense with Curtis Scott here is to share stuff with the people out here, and especially where we're at, we don't have all the ways to find out all the things, especially in the smaller county of Ellis County. I mean, we don't have a media source really. So
right.
There's a few, but anyways, we'll go ahead and move on. So I know we've got a veterans court, so I probably should have worded this, but on promoting the veterans court and growing it, are you trying to do that? You know, and the second to that would be, what about people with intellectual disabilities?
Sure. When I took office, one of the promises I made is I would get a veterans treatment court up and functioning. Those things don't happen overnight, and we were especially coming off of COVID with the court system shut down and with the court backlog. But we got it going. I went to the commissioner's court. We asked for the permission to go out for a grant to help fund a veterans treatment court coordinator. We went to commissioner's court and had Judge Wallace appointed as our veterans treatment court judge. We received the grant, $110,000 grant from the state last year. At that point, Judge Wallace, since he is the veterans court judge, the position of coordinator is under him. He had to post the position, and then he had to hire that person. That person was hired on Friday of last week, and they started Tuesday. So we now have a veterans court coordinator. We have some cases that have already been, or some defendants that have been submitted to us that we were holding up a little bit until we got ours up and going. Because if we transfer them to another county to start the program, we can't get them back. So if I send it to Tarrant County, they're in that program until they graduate. And since we were so close getting somebody hired, we went ahead and just tapped the brakes a little bit. And now we have that person hired. They've started, so they can look at the applications to see if the person qualifies for the program. And if so, we can start that process pretty quickly now. So we're super excited about that. I have met him. He's not my employee, though, because you have to remember they work for the court.
Yes.
The Veterans Court is a collaborative process. My office is involved. The court's involved. The veterans, VA's involved. Our local veterans officer is involved. The defense bar is involved. It's very collaborative. I went and observed the one in Tarrant County when I was running for office. It was very impressive. Judge Vanover, I went to law school with him, and so I was able to sit and watch one of his veterans court procedures. I have not since taken office, though. If somebody qualified for a program and Tarrant County would accept them, I have transferred them to Tarrant County. We have graduated one person from the program who came back to our county, got his case dismissed, got his case expunged, and was able to tell us what the program did for him and how it set him up with all of these other resources that he didn't know he had when he left the military, because they just let you leave and they don't tell you all the resources that are available to you. So we are there. I am super excited about that, but it was a process, and the $110,000 grant is going to pay for that coordinator position. Even though it's not my office's position, we went ahead at the request of Judge Wallace and applied for that grant again for next fiscal year. So since hopefully now that he has the person hired, that office will take over that next year. But we went ahead and did that again this year so that we can try to keep that money coming in from the state, from the Veterans Commission from the state.
Okay, sounds good there. So, the current world we live in, we're having all sorts of counties I know the state's passed some laws on this, but would you ever take or pursue voter fraud cases if any came up? I mean, we've seen that happen, I think, in Dallas County and Harris County. I don't think we've really had anything here in Ellis County, maybe one or two, something. I don't know. I've never really heard.
No, we have.
So we have. Okay. So see, we don't. That's where we don't hear about a lot of this stuff. So in light of, because we're really seeing a lot of that stuff, and a lot of the voters, a lot of listeners are really concerned about that stuff. Of, are we going to do like Harris County, where they just act like the stuff didn't happen?
No, sir. And actually, this last legislative session, the legislature made it difficult and added to the removal statute to remove an elected county or district attorney failure to follow the law as one of the grounds for removal. It wasn't because of the majority of the counties in the state of Texas. The majority of elected officials are doing their job. It was for that small few who maybe don't want to prosecute theft cases under $750, or who maybe don't want to take those voter fraud cases. I have had those cases since taking office. I have had cases referred to me from the election office in which they thought fraud was committed. My office investigated those, presented them to the grand jury, and the grand jury made the decision on whether or not they needed to proceed. In all the cases so far, the grand jury has determined it was not, they did not think there was enough there to proceed. But it was not something that my office made the decision on. It's something we investigated specifically in my office, and we sent it to the grand jury for them to make that decision.
So you kind of already answered the next question, which was, would you ever support not accepting any certain types of charges? Because you just said about the 750 and below that Dallas County for a while there said, hey, we're not going to do this. Mm-hmm. And I worked Dallas County, and they didn't have that rule necessarily when I worked there, but it was kind of funny how certain cases just got dismissed a whole lot. So
yes. I said when I took office, I ran for office the first time for a full year. I started in 2019 in February, and I went through March of 2020. The citizens of this county told me overwhelmingly they wanted a district attorney who was tough on crime and that would not turn us into Dallas County, Harris County, Travis County. They didn't want that. They wanted us to go forward and prosecute the cases that needed to be prosecuted. And that's what I've done. I would never say I'm not supporting a certain type of charge. First of all, because if the legislature does not want me to prosecute it, they need to change the law. If it's on the books, then I need to look at it, see if the elements of the offense are met, and determine whether or not it needs to go forward. We have prosecutor discretion, but I'm never going to say a certain type of offense should not be prosecuted. A lot of people think possession of marijuana shouldn't be prosecuted. Our office still prosecutes those cases. Juries are not as favorable to those cases now, but we still try to go forward on them. But it is de minimis what's turned in now on marijuana cases is what we've had in the past.
Yeah. I know with a lot of departments too, they've gone to where they don't take certain marijuana charges below certain amounts because of the proof and everything, having to send it to a lab. So
you don't just send it to a lab, you have to send it to a private lab.
Yes.
And that costs money to be tested. And then when I call that private lab to testify, it was $3,000 in a misdemeanor case. So if DPS comes and testifies, there's no charge to the state or the county at that point, because the county is paying my budget for expert witnesses.
Yes. So, okay, well, let's go ahead and move on to the next question. And this one is because, we live in a time where it seems like some people have forgot that the Constitution is the law of the land, and we actually have a Texas Constitution. So what is your take on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and what is its importance for the Ellis County / District Attorney?
Oh, it's extremely important. I firmly believe in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, specifically relating to criminal cases. I can tell you it's extremely important. When I go talk to young kids in school on career day, they're like, they want to be a lawyer. And I'm like, great, what kind of lawyer do you want to be? I want to be a defense attorney. Okay, why do you want to be a defense attorney? Because I want to look out for people's rights. I said, but do you know who the first person is who reviews a case and really looks at a case to determine if somebody's rights were violated? The prosecutor. And they're like, oh, okay. I said, because we can look at a case, and if we feel like the Fourth Amendment was violated, we can reject that case, and it does not go any further. If we feel like we can make arguments that say no, there's a reasonable belief that we can go forward, then we can. Sometimes it's an adversarial proceeding. What we believe is not necessarily what every defense attorney believes. We're going to have our different view on case law that interprets the Fourth Amendment or what, that's just the nature of our process. But if we look at it and say, no, it was a bad stop and that's how we found the drugs, then that's a case that probably is not going to go any further. So I think it's extremely important. And actually, I think our prosecutors do a great job as the gatekeeper right off the bat of looking at those cases and trying to determine whether they should go forward or not.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate your time tonight or this afternoon, evening. We're fixing to be going into evening here. But if you could just give us a little like final your spill of why people should vote for Ann Montgomery.
Sure. When I ran for office, I ran based on several things that I said I would do. I've accomplished all of those. I got us our Veterans Court. I started a pretrial diversion program for first-time misdemeanor offenses. I've implemented a new grand jury subpoena process that for law enforcement officers is extremely beneficial, especially with crimes that are involving bank records or medical records or records that they need to receive. We have our sexual assault response training that happens. We have done so many things with human trafficking and child sex trafficking. So even though we've got a small backlog left over from the trials, and what I want to say on that is I have one felony court. So when a case is indicted, it goes into one court. And so if I don't control that docket, the judge does. She works very hard, but with all of these cases that we have coming in, it is more than one person can handle. I have enough prosecutors that I could put in 3 courts so that we could work through things in triple time, but I can't do that right now. So we work with the courts very closely to try to get all these cases through. We work with the jail if they top out at a lot, which last year they topped out at a little bit over 600, like 608. We started looking at those, trying to help them so that we can move some of those cases. But with one court, it makes it very difficult. Hopefully that will resolve in the next legislative session and we'll get some relief there. But for now, it makes it a little bit more difficult. We're working on getting the cases filed faster. We're anywhere from a little over 3 to 6 months right now, unless we're waiting on labs. DPS is quite backed up. So we're doing our best to get those cases filed as quickly as we can and get the results. We're working, and my staff is working hard for the citizens of Ellis County. I care about the victims of crime. I make it a point to meet with them. Those are hard conversations when we're talking about the death of a loved one. And those are the cases that I've specifically met with those victims on from day one. I have impaneled every grand jury since taking office, and we do that twice a year. I have done all of the orientations for those grand juries. I just did it yesterday. I'm there. I'm screening cases. I'm working every day. And so I'm asking the citizens to re-elect me as their Ellis County and District Attorney.
Thank you very much for coming on. If you don't have anything else, we'll go and call it a day here.
All righty. Thank you.
Right. Yes, ma'am. You have a great day.
You too.